Hi there, I'm Cesar DACOL Jr. and welcome to From Clay to Zbrush. If you've been following me for the past month, then you're familiar with the term clay. I spent the entire month, every single day, sculpting a brand new monster in clay, and we called it Monster Month. If you want to see those videos, just go up to my channel and you can see all of them, and I'll take you through the whole process of building armatures and whatnot. So what am I doing? Well, this is brand new for me. I've never done this before in any of my classes. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be starting up a new class where I'm going to take everybody through designing for production, sculpting for production in Zbrush. And one of the things that I thought I would do this time that's different from all the other times is kind of talk about some of the philosophical points that I use as a professional. Why? My classes are a little bit different, to say the least. I am a very positive person, and I believe very much in forward momentum and keeping on the struggle and the fight. And I don't believe that that anything happens by happenstance. That everything that I've achieved in my life, I've gone out and opened those doors. And that's kind of a big part of who I am. So I can't help but try to encourage my students to have that similar outlooks. So in this video, I want to start, and we're going to be doing 5 of these. I'm going to do 5 of these videos leading up to a free webinar that we're going to do. And at the bottom of this page, you're going to see a link that's going to take you over to the sign-up page. You're just going to put your email and your name and whatnot so that you can gain access. That's so that we can inform you and send you the actual link for the webinar, the go-to meeting that we're going to be using. And there's also another link down there that's to my my newsletter called The Dungeon. And that's something that we put out every single month, and it's just going to give you tips and tricks and information and a way to kind of keep upkeep with what I'm doing. Anyways, let's get back to this. So today I want to talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Why is it near and dear to my heart? Because when I was young, I thought I was weird and strange and you know, I had a hard time with this. What did I have a hard time with? And this is the big secret. You know, I call it the big secret because as I've kind of grown up and I've gotten a little bit grayer and balder and whatnot, I've had more experiences and I've had more exposure, and I've had exposure to some of the really top, the elite people in the industry. And I would approach them and I would ask them, and I would, you know, I'm not one that, as you can see, that is too shy on this front. And I started to become amazed at the responses that I was getting. So what's the big secret? We're all insecure. All of us. Whether you're professional or starting out, all of us have some measure of insecurity. We like to wear different masks, call it perfectionism or this or that or whatnot. But really, if you boil it down to its essence, it's about insecurity. Insecurity of not being approved or receiving approval from people. Insecurity is a big motivator for either doing something or not doing something. But as that great song says, if you choose not to choose, you've already chosen. So I'm a big proponent of just choosing and doing. Choose and do. And you'll be amazed how much progression you'll have in any given year if you just do that. So let's talk a little bit more about insecurity and how it can kind of manifest itself in your life. Insecurity can manifest itself via procrastination, via you not moving forward. It can also be debilitating in terms of you not wanting to show, or you thinking that you are not good enough for a position or for a... And how many times have you heard stories of people saying, well, I never thought I'd get the job, but somehow I did. But let's talk specifically about sculpting and how it manifests itself in sculpting and in drawing and being creative. So here we are, adults now, right? And think back to when you were a child. Now imagine that you are crawling around and your parents are sitting on the couch and you get up and you take your first step and you stumble and you fall. What do your parents do? Well, they encourage you, right? They say, come on, you can do it. Get up, you can do it. And you get up and you take another step and then you fall. Now, do your parents stop encouraging you? Do they say, oh boy, that's a dumbass. See, you can't even walk. You'll never walk. Of course not. Of course not. The reality of it is that they'll never stop encouraging you until you walk. Isn't that the point? Why is it that when we become adults, we'll try something for the first time, we'll have a look around quickly, make sure nobody saw us if we failed, and if nobody saw us, we'll give it another shot. But generally speaking, if somebody sees us fail, we're done. We won't try that ever again. Now, how do we deal with that failure? 9 times out of 10, we will blame what? We'll blame the package, Zbrush. We'll blame whatever, because we failed. Now here's something that I got to tell you about failure. And this is to you right there. Failure is what you should be doing. Yeah, you heard me right. Failure is what you want to be doing. Because failing is learning. If you don't fail, you don't know what not to do. Do you understand? At the end of the day, failure, for the most successful people, if you take baseball, for example, the people that are in the Hall of Fame, they fail more than 70% of the time up at bat. They only succeed 30% of the time. These are Hall of Famers. So this is important for you to understand, because as adults, somewhere along the line, we have learned that failing is bad. Even worse, what's been beaten out of us is our imagination. Think about this. When you go to school, what are you told? Sit up straight, focus, stop daydreaming. What are you drawing over there? Give me that. From day one, when you get into the education system, you are told how to behave, how to stand in line, and how to be a robot. Now here's the irony of this. When you become an adult and you enter the system, they have these amazing meetings, outings. Sometimes they go to like retreats where they pay some guru thousands of dollars to teach you how to think outside the box. Let me get this straight. As a child, you teach me to stand in line and not have imagination, and now as an adult, you want me to relearn how to have an imagination. How bizarre is that? It's ridiculous, right? So what I'm trying to get across here, first of all, if you haven't gotten this, this is going to sound weird, but the only reason I do this stuff, the only reason I do this teaching, I've been teaching for 10 years now. And when I first started teaching, I didn't want to do it. I didn't think it was for me. In fact, it was my wife who encouraged me and said, no, you got to do it. And I have to thank Belania, hi Belania, who just kept on me and was just like, no, come on, and kept on me and kept sending me emails. And it took her a year and a half to convince me to put some teaching materials out there. A year and a half. She finally did. Something magical happened though. My interaction with people, my interaction with students became something very special. I realized 2 things. First of all, when I impart something that I've learned, a piece of me, a part of me continues on with that person. And they in turn teach others. So that's a wonderful thing. Wonderful. But even better than that was hearing from people 4 years, 5 years later down the road, where some of them come in and they didn't know anything about what you know, the package was, but 4 years or 5 years down the road, and they're heads of departments. That feeling, that warmth that I felt was addictive. Why was it addictive? Because I made a connection. I made, not only did I teach somebody something, but I was appreciative that they took the time to invest in me, and they were appreciative that I took the time to invest in them. So if you don't realize this right now, I hope this is coming across, because obviously I'm talking into a camera right now. So I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I care about you. Your success, whatever you want to achieve in life, your success is my success. Your failure is my failure. So understand where I'm coming from with all of this stuff and this philosophical things, and you know, I mean, sure, I could be like everybody else, like every other course out there, and just teach you the nuts and bolts of ZBrush. That's not my thing. That's not my thing. I want to make sure that not only do I teach you the nuts and bolts of ZBrush, not only do I teach you about how to use this box, but how to implement it. Because what's the point of me teaching you this stuff if you don't implement it in your life and get somewhere with it? If you just learn it and don't do anything with it, what's the point? There is no point. You might as well not do it. So, ZBrush. There is a world out there of people that, amazingly so, still do not get ZBrush. Or if they do even attempt it, try it, say that it's impossible to work with, that it's too complicated, that it's this and this and this and this, and they've got a whole list of excuses of why not to use ZBrush. The reality of it is that they're frustrated. Now here's what I want to tell you about frustration. Frustration is the key to learning. Right? Think about this. When you are frustrated, it means that your brain does not have the answer. It doesn't know it, which means it's setting up the synapses. It's a physical, it's almost like when you get frustrated, your brain is preparing itself to record new information. It's preparing the synapses to connect. Frustration. There's a lightning storm going on in your brain. So when I feel frustrated, I get excited because I know something new is about to happen. I'm going to learn a new piece of information. So when you're frustrated, just understand that that's what's going on. Condition yourself. Conditioning is a big part of everything. Do you understand the term conditioning? What conditioning is? Conditioning is like you go to work out in the gym and you're going to lift the weights. You're conditioning your body, right? Well, your brain's the exact same way. If you feed it garbage, you're going to get garbage out. If you feed it good stuff, you're going to get good stuff out. So let's have a look at ZBrush. I'm going to try to demystify ZBrush. Over the next 5 days, I'm going to kind of take you through some real basic things in ZBrush. So even if you've never, ever, and by the way, you can download a free trial. And you don't need a fancy computer for that. Look, I'm using a Lenovo. Don't know, never heard of Lenovo? Neither did I. I was in Australia and I had my big fancy $3,500, you know, HP. I mean, it was just like all the bells and whistles. It burned. And I needed a computer right away. And one thing that I didn't realize about Australia is that it being an island, everything's double the cost over there. So for me to replace that computer that I had, it would have cost me like $7,000, $8,000 in Australia. And it was just like, no, I can't do that. So I jumped online and I searched, and there was this guy selling this computer. And I'm like, I've never even heard of this computer before. I was like, you know what, I need it. I need it right now. And I bought it from him. It was secondhand. I've had this computer for 2 years. It's the most amazing little box I've ever had. ever had. And it's like nothing complicated, nothing crazy. It's just a simple little box. But that was a big lesson for me in terms of, you know, just because it's got a big price tag doesn't mean it's great. So let's jump into Zbrush and let's have a look at the interface. Come on. Okay, so here we are inside Zbrush world. Now, if this is the first time you're seeing Zbrush, chances are you're probably a little bit intimidated, maybe feeling a little bit insecure. I kid. At the end of the day, this is all fine, and I'm going to teach you guys some of the basic things that seem to trip people up. Now remember, if you don't have Zbrush, you can go over to pixelogic.com and download the free trial. I recommend you do so. It's just so much fun, and I think you'll find it super addictive. So let me show you some of the basic things right off the bat. The first thing is that if the colors don't sit well with you, if you find this a little bit too dark and dingy, you can go up here, these two buttons, and there's some presets for different colors that you can play around with. So that's the first part. Now, the other part is there's actually user interface. The layout you see can be completely customizable. And there's some defaults here as well, where you can just kind of go through and cycle through and just find something that works for you there as well. Why am I showing you those things right off the bat? Simple. Because Zbrush is completely customizable. It can be whatever you want it to be. Now here's the most important part about Zbrush that you need to understand. Are you ready for this? Zbrush is a hybrid solution. It can deal with 2D images and it can also deal with 3D objects. You with me? It's a 2D, 3D solution. Why am I telling you this? Simple. Because there's a lot of people out there saying, well, why don't I just make it 3D? Because it's not a 3D solution. It's a 2D, 3D solution. It's both. It's a hybrid approach that allows you to do both. So you can have a Photoshop element to it. Yes, you heard me right. A Photoshop element to it. And also a 3D application element to it in one package. That's what makes it so revolutionary. And I don't use that term lightly. Zbrush is revolutionary on every front. Now, let me talk about, I think, what ends up tripping people up the most, and that is tool versus object versus the canvas versus a document. And what are all these things, and why are they all so different? First of all, they're different because they're different things. Now, even if you're new to 3D, I'm assuming if you're online and you're looking at this, you understand that image formats have, well, images have different formats. There's a .jpeg, a .gif, a .tga, anyways, there's different, a PGN, there's different formats, and you can have the exact same image represented in a different way. All of them basically have a different compression and deal with images differently. Some of them have more spectrum in terms of the color, others use different compression rate. All of these different things basically come to a way of wrapping the package, wrapping the information for that image. Well, let's jump out of Zbrush here for a second. This can be represented as a 3D object. Now it can be represented in many different things. Firstly, the term .obj is short for object. That's the first part we need to understand. It's nothing more than a wrapper, a compression that takes the mathematical information that represents this object and boils it down into a script. That's it. At its core, that's what it is. So Zbrush has its own native, following me? Has its own native way to deal with objects. All programs have this. So Zbrush calls it a .ztl, right? So a Z tool. Now this is where people tend to get like, a tool, isn't a tool something that you know, a tool. I understand that. But they chose to name, it's just the name. Just get that straight, and it'll never, once you understand that, it'll never be complicated for you again. The object, once inside of ZBrush, basically becomes a tool. And what you would think is a tool basically becomes a brush. So whether it's a sculpting tool, whether it's, basically the name that they call it is a brush. So you've got your tool inside of ZBrush, and then you've got your brush. Let's jump back into ZBrush. So I'm going to import an object. So I'm going to import this object right here. And you can see that it loads it under my tool subpalette. Here's my tool subpalette, which is also here. By the way, you might accidentally do this, and it might be like this. So just, there's these arrows, you can click on that, and then in your tool, you just click on this little kind of watch thing here, and it'll dock your palette. And you can slide up and down and open up your subpalettes. But you can see that in my tool, I've got my subpalette here, and I can see my dog. But the first thing that trips people up is they go, wait a minute, where's the dog? It's not on the canvas. The canvas is this area right here. So let's go ahead and draw the dog out. You go, hey, I got the dog, yeah. And you do, the dog is there. But remember I said it's a 2D, 3D? Right now you're in 2D mode. So if you try and sculpt the dog, what you're going to keep doing is just drawing out more dogs. You're just drawing out more and more and more and more dogs on the surface. So wait a minute, how do I sculpt the dog? Well, the way you sculpt the dog is you have to go into edit mode. Now, there's two things that you need to look for to know whether you're in edit mode. The first thing is your brush palette right here. This is your brush palette. This is where all your brushes are. It's also up here. But this is kind of like, think of it like a hot box, a quick way to get to your brushes. So your brush palette is right here, and you can see that it's grayed out, which means I don't, if you can see my cursor's over it, and I don't have access to it. So that's the first way. Now the second way is up here, and this is the most important way, which is this edit button right here. Now you can see that as I hover over it, it tells me that it's the edit object, and there's a letter T there. Well, that letter T is the hotkey for how to turn that on and off. So I can just click edit, and then now I'm in edit mode. But I've got all this stuff that I drew onto my canvas. Remember, 2D, my 3D, so it's somewhere in there. So I need to clear my canvas right now. So the way I clear it is I go Control N, and it clears my canvas. And then now I've got my dog. And the way I frame that is just by clicking on F. Just click F and it frames your dog. So now I can sculpt on the dog. Now if I want to sculpt on both sides of the dog, I can just click on X, and that gives me symmetry. The way ZBrush works, and the way most all 3D applications work, is basically it's got a coordinate system. It's got an X, Y, Z, which basically describes your up, your side, which is it's a mapping coordinate. It's a Cartesian mapping coordinate system. So it's basically it's telling you how high something is, how wide something is, how deep something is, and how wide something is. That's what X, Y, Z is. So when I click on X, because X deals with what? It deals with the width. It basically if you were to split it down the middle here, this being the middle of my object, it's basically saying on the other side of that, give me the exact same brush stroke. So, and then I can basically sculpt on both sides symmetrically, just like that. So that's how you would go about sculpting. Now, let's say that I want to save this. Well, if I go up here and I go Save As, it's going to save a .ztl. Remember, .ztl is a native to what? To ZBrush, not to a 3D application. So you can't load this into a 3D application other than ZBrush. So that's not what we want to do. We want to be able to transfer it back and forth. Now the package, the way that I use it the most is I either use GoZ, which allows me to go into Maya via a .ma, which is a Maya native language, or I can use a .obj, which basically allows me to go into pretty much every single 3D application that there is out there. So when would I want to save a .ztl? I would want to save a .ztl when I've got multiple layers and sculptures and all that sort of stuff. But a .obj is a good way to transfer the object itself back and forth. So how do I do that? Well, the first thing that I want to do is I want to go into my export options because I'm exporting it outside of Zbrush. So I'm just going to turn the grouping functionality off. I don't need to group it. I just want to export the object. And then I'm going to go here to my export palette. Now remember, we imported it in, now we're going to export it. So I can go export, and then I'm just going to save dog1. So now I've exported that dog out. Now, that's ZTL, importing, obj, all that sort of stuff. Now I want to talk about document. Document, people think that if I save a document, it's going to save everything. A document saves only the document. It's a 2D representation. It'll only save the document. So if I go to Document, Save As, you can see that I get the Save Document button here. But you can see that I also get a handy little warning telling me, well, it's not really a warning per se, but a handy little button right next to it reminding me to save the tool. Because if I save just the document, it's not going to save the tool. Now, you would think that if I save the document and open the document, that object is going to be there. No, I'm going to get a 2D representation of the object, but no object. If I want to actually, I'm just going to cancel that. If I actually want to save the document, the tool, and everything else, the presets, what I want to do is I want to go into File, and then Save As, and then now I've got a ZPR, a ZBrush project. Now the ZBrush project looks at everything inside of ZBrush and saves it accordingly. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And then now I'm going to initialize. I'm going to reinitialize ZBrush. So I'm just going to go to my preferences and go initialize ZBrush. It's going to give me a warning basically saying that I'm going to get rid of everything. I'm going to go OK. And it's going to basically reset my ZBrush. So now I can go to a File, Open, and bring up that ZBrush project. And you can see, there it is. It's brought the tool in, and here's the important part. It's remembered exactly that I was in edit mode, so that now I can basically just continue sculpting. So this is really handy if you're like working on a project and you want to just continue. Now, here's something to be cautious about. This is saving all the information. So these, when you save a ZPR, the files are much bigger than, say, a ZTL. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going to drop out of edit mode and clear the canvas because I just want to talk about the menus up here at the top. Now I'm not going to go through all the different menus. You've already saw me go through preferences. And by the way, this is where you would want to customize your UI. But I want to talk about these three in particular here at the front. Alpha. An alpha is a representation. Think of it as a cookie cutter. You've rolled out your dough and then you know how you can go in and cut different shapes? Well, your alpha is kind of like that. It's different shapes that you can put at the end of your brush that basically give you different representations. That's the first thing that it does. The other thing that it does is that you can also use it as almost like a mask. So let's say you've got a complicated shape that you can put over your surface and then you could airbrush through, lift that alpha off, and then you would see the patterning underneath. So really, really powerful stuff. Your brush, as I've kind of alluded to, your brush is basically, it's the sculpting tool and it's also your painting tool. So it's your airbrush, your pencil brush, etc. So that's your brushes. And then your color is obviously your color information. Now depending on how fine the gradient nature that you're going after, you can open up your modifiers and you can get even more specific in terms of the particular color that you're looking for. Just understand, and I just docked this over here, so I'm just going to get rid of that. But just understand that you have all of these things available to you. Now, if you're new to ZBrush, I just want to show you Lightbox, because Lightbox is super powerful. Lightbox is a navigation menu that lives within ZBrush that allows you to navigate all sorts of different things. Brushes, textures, materials, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to stick with tools, which are, again, the objects. And I just want to show you that you have these basic things that are available to you. So for instance, that dog that I was using, you could just load it right in here. You could select the dog and start sculpting. There's a demo soldier, there's a demo head, there's a female model, there's a male model, there's even a skeleton in here. So just go in here and explore, and you can play around with coming up with your own creatures. So with that, I thank you for joining me for day 1. Be sure to come by on day 2. Make sure that you join down at the bottom. Click on that link, go over there, join the GoTo, fill in your information, go over to GoTo, sign up for my newsletter. We've got lots of plans. This is a whole brand new venture for us. So thank you very much. And remember, subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.